Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that we have a dragon-level threat occurring in the gacha space, because the Nigerian Perspective has gone ahead and uploaded a video called Wuthering Waves Faces Its Biggest Threat Yet. And boy, oh boy, I have no fucking clue what this guy could possibly be talking about. So why don't we go ahead, get ourselves acquainted, and see what this one is all about? Because the Nigerian Perspective does actually come out with some pretty solid stuff. I remember viewing his Augusta video. And so now let's go ahead, get right on into this one and see what it's all about.
Wuthering Waves might actually be stepping into real competition territory. You see, for a while now, we've been comparing it to Hoyoverse games, whether that's Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail. But honestly, that comparison is starting to fall apart.
It is. You want to know why? Because Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact are legitimately so bad now that it's not worth actually making the comparisons to Wuthering Waves. You'll notice that there's not actually that many comparison videos that aren't like straight satire or parody, because the comparisons have become a joke. And the reason for that is kind of simple. Wuthering Waves, after version 2.0, had elevated the quality of its game to another level. And the truth of the matter when it comes to Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail is that the quality of those games is actively dropping at the same time while Wuwa is reaching new heights. You don't have to take my word for it though. Let's just look up this clip that shows you the quality of Genshin Impact in one of its most recent updates, a story quest from a month ago. This is one of the in-game cutscenes.
They're coming!
Run!
Eliminate the threat. Take them down.
Everything is bad. The voice acting is bad. The animations are bad. The special effects are bad. There's nothing good here. There's nothing that's high quality here. This literally looks like a PS1 game. A PS1 in-game cutscene. And this is a rendered one. Brother, there's no universe where you're still actually comparing Genshin Impact to Wuthering Waves when this is what is in Genshin Impact. This is like comparing the Mona Lisa to the drawing that your kindergartner made. Unless you're doing it as a joke, no one is taking you seriously anymore. It's just that simple.
With everything we've experienced so far, Wuthering Waves has moved beyond just giving us a story or new versions. It's been delivering full-on experiences. And it's hard to compare an experience to what Hoyoverse offers. So unless Hoyoverse makes some drastic changes to how they tell or deliver their stories, that head-to-head matchup isn't really fair anymore. But here,
well, it's gonna keep getting more unfair. Because you know the quality of Genshin is going to keep dropping. Because if this is what they did for Skirk's story quest, guys, they teased Skirk since version 1.1 of the game. And this is what they did for her story quest. You want to know what Varka and Alice's story quests are probably going to look like? The units that have been teased also since 1.0? Alice's fucking story quest is probably going to be like a children's coloring book. Varka's story quest is probably going to be stick figure animation. Just give up at this point expecting anything good.
here's the thing. Something just happened in the gacha space that makes me believe Wuthering Waves might be in a bit of trouble. Real competition might be on the horizon. And that's what we want to dive into in this video. So if you're into this kind of content, make sure to like the video and drop a comment letting me know whether you think Hoyoverse still has a chance against Wuthering Waves or if they're just going to settle for second place.
Maybe he's spitting. Maybe they do have a second chance. I'm interested in hearing more. Oh wait, I'm already subscribed.
And of course, subscribe in case you're interested on any of my future videos. Before we get into it, let's give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Top Up Live. Top Up Live.
Okay, we'll be skipping the sponsor, but W Nigerian Perspective for getting one. W.
See, a couple of days ago, Wuthering Waves dropped a short cinematic called To the Finale. And while it was brief, two things stood out to me, two very important things. First, from the stories we'll get with Augusta and Yuno to the arcs involving Galbarina and Chisa, everything about these characters screams momentum. The hype is only going to build. That trailer was more proof that each of them will only elevate the game even further. But the second thing I noticed, and this is the big one, Rinascita is coming to an end. The insane journey we've had from Reguna through Septimont and everything in between is about to close this chapter.
I think that that's kind of like the general reaction to this trailer is that most of the times when you're in like a 2.4 kind of like setting, you're heading into like 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, you kind of expect the story to taper off. We're finally now actually reaching the climax of Wuthering Waves. I think a lot of people are used to like the Genshin and HSR patch cycle, where the actual meaningful climactic stuff like of the region occurs in the like 2.3, 2.4, maybe the 5th patch at the very latest, right? We're in version 2.5, and it still feels like we haven't gotten even close to the end yet, right? We maybe have like 2 more versions left, and then maybe a bit of like an epilogue to close us out after that, right? There still needs to be like that big boom that occurs in this story. We've had a lot of like very like sort of like smaller conflicts that have led to some great moments, but we really haven't had like that gigantic finish, that Avengers Assemble moment that people have been looking for. And I think part of this trailer really kind of just spoiled that that's what's gonna happen, but I feel like that's what everybody was expecting anyways. And so it's no real surprise that we got the entire squad over here, the Rinascita Avengers, going ahead and then having a battle. Like, let's just be honest here. Doesn't this remind you of the scene from the first Avengers, where they're defending New York against like all of like Loki and the Thanos minions? They're like coming down to like invade. Like, this entire sequence like gives me those vibes.
And everything in between is about to close this chapter. In just a few months, we'll leave.
Nah, not really. Okay. Anyone that's saying no, not really, probably wasn't alive when the first Avengers came out. Just so you know, the first Avengers came out about 15 years ago. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. It's not.
Leave Rinascita entirely and head into a brand new region. And that's when the question hit me. Can Wuthering Waves give us something better than the Rinascita experience?
I think so. I think so, to be honest. I've got my thoughts about Rinascita as a whole. I think it's actually too big. I think that there's not enough landmarks for how big the area is, and parts of it do feel empty. I'm actually looking forward to a way different exploration and world experience that's a little bit more like contained, that's more like vertical, that's more like rooms. Think about like the port city of Guizhou and how exploration in that region was like, where you would go inside buildings, climb down ladders, use like switches and stuff to unlock like hidden compartments inside of rooms and find chests and stuff in there. I want more of that. I actually want some tighter exploration, because I'm just gonna be honest here, I'm kind of tired of flying around everywhere, and I don't want to fly around everywhere for another year.
Because right now, the only real competition that Wuthering Waves has might be itself. The challenge isn't Genshin, Star Rail, or any other game. It's whether Wuthering Waves can outdo what it has already given us. Because the next region has
variety is what you need. Some people might always have this obsession that the next thing that comes out needs to be better in every single way. But simply introducing something new that's still done well can also be a way to improve the game, because you're putting in something that feels like it's lacking, right? And I feel like what the game lacks right now is kind of like a lot more variety in how the exploration experience goes and how the world design goes. Because right now it's just a bunch of gigantic open expanses, huge cliffs, great vistas, some underground areas, but it's undeniably, it's gotten a little bit stale. Maybe the next region is a mix, right? Where it feels like it's an in-between, between like Jinzhou and Rinascita. But I don't want Rinascita 2. I think Rinascita 2 would be a gigantic miss.
Has some massive shoes to fill. You see, its job isn't just to keep the hype going. It has to amplify it. It has to give us something that hits even harder than what Rinascita gave us.
Yep.
Because whether we want to admit it or not, Rinascita has completely changed how we see Wuthering Waves.
Absolutely.
For many of us, it stopped feeling like just another gacha game and started feeling like something more. It's reshaped how we talk about it, how we rate it, and how we experience it. Even the community has shifted. Whole conversations across the gacha space has revolved around Rinascita for weeks on end. That's how impactful it's been. So the big question is, what exactly did Rinascita do? What made it so special? And more importantly, what will the next region have to improve on if it's going to top that experience? Let's start with the storytelling. See, I've said this before in another video, but when you really look at the best stories Wuthering Waves gives us, they're not necessarily deeper than other gacha game stories. Gacha games are known for having deep, complex narratives, but where they often fail is in execution, because no matter how good a story is, if it's not executed well, the whole thing falls apart.
I'm sure the dialogue in here was actually meaningful, and I'm sure if you like paid attention to this cutscene, like I'm sure it meant a lot to the story.
Don't let a single one of them get away!
I can't give a fuck what's actually going on in the Skirk story quest if this is what I'm being shown during it. Like, there's no way I'd be able to take any of the dialogue, any of the plot progression, any of that seriously when this is the storytelling that you're getting exposed to, right? It's a joke. I know this is supposed to be tragic. I know that you're supposed to be like emotionally pulled because like a village of people are like dying, but they literally look like unborn children, expelled from the chamber of man, given human shape. That's what they look like, just floating around. It's terrible.
And I think Wuthering Waves at this point has perfected execution. See, when we first entered Rinascita in version 2.0, the storytelling wasn't much different from any other gacha game. Don't get me wrong, it was interesting. We roamed around Rinascita with Zani, helping people along the way. But there wasn't really anything in that chapter that made it stand out from what I'd experienced elsewhere. So naturally, my expectations stayed pretty low. I figured future updates would follow this same pattern. But
Really, that's an interesting thought, because I feel like for a lot of people that were going into version 2.0 and that were kind of factoring in a lot of the other quests that were in the game, I was personally of the boat that 2.0 did a lot to like advance the overall storytelling, and I think really 2.0 was like a testament to how story length doesn't mean, like, a long story doesn't have to be a bad one. And 2.0 was directly adjacent to Honkai Star Rail 3.0. Let me give you a little bit of history about Honkai Star Rail 3.0. You guys see this video that released alongside Honkai Star Rail 3.0? It's called We Deserve Hoyo's Apology. This is one of the most viewed Honkai Star Rail videos ever, and it's talking about how dog shit 3.0 was as an update and how low quality the quest was and how fucking absurdly long it was. 10 hours of absolute fucking nonsense and awful storytelling and like 3 static poses across the entire thing. You can see from the fucking thumbnail over here. Rinascita 2.0 was directly adjacent to Honkai Star Rail 3.0. And maybe this is just like the rose-tinted goggles. Maybe Amphorius was just so fucking bad that it made 2.0 look like a masterpiece in comparison. And maybe it was just like a good, palatable quest, right? It was like good. It wasn't like groundbreaking, but it seemed like God's gift to gacha stories compared to Amphorius. Maybe that's the right framing about it. It's crazy how you can elevate one game or one experience by being complete ass. And that's kind of what Honkai Star Rail did.
But then, in version 2.2, something shifted. I started to notice something very different. And that is how cinematic and personal the entire story in version 2.2 felt. Because one of my most memorable moments didn't even come from a major boss fight, but from a random echo encounter. See, as the journey recovered...
Is he going to talk about Kadanto? Yeah, 2.2 was like... I don't know who was in the writing room during 2.2, but I feel like there was a unique writing team for 2.0 and 2.4 of Wuthering Waves, and there was a different writing team, maybe a different head, different lead for 2.2 and 2.5. It seems like there's like somebody behind the scenes at Kuro Games on the writing team that's like really good at like the emotional, the heartstring pulling, all of that, and they came in for the 2.2 and the 2.5 quest. But then there's somebody that's more about like this whole like large scale sort of conflict, like an overarching plot. And they were responsible for like 2.0 and 2.4. And when you consider the patches that are coming up next, I think 2.6 is going to be written by the same guy that did like 2.4 and 2.0. I don't think 2.6 is going to be some like emotional feeling quest, at least from my point of view. I'm happy to be wrong, though, but 2.6 feels like it's going to be large-scale like 2.4 or 2.0.
Kartathea, we encounter an echo, and after defeating it, we learned that it used to be a god of Kartathea. It protected Kartathea, and there was a friendship between her and that echo. And that moment wasn't really about the echo itself. It was there to give us more backstory about Kartathea. And even though it didn't have a huge impact on the grand plot, it stuck with me because of how cinematically Wuthering Waves chose to tell it. And that same level of cinematic storytelling carried throughout the entire update. We got deeper insights into into Kartathea's transformation from just a normal girl to the Blessed Maiden, the conversation with Fleur-de-Lis and the Threnodian, and then there were the quieter moments like our talk with Imperator. And you see, on paper, all of these moments were not big, flashy set pieces. But the way they were presented made it impossible to not notice that something had changed. This was different from what we got in version 2.0. But I believe the biggest shift in Wuthering Waves storytelling happened in version 2.4 and 2.5. If 2.2 gave us a cinematic experience, these two versions cranked that up by 100.
If 2.2 gave a cinematic experience, then 2.4 and 2.5 cranked it up to 100. Maybe I'm crazy, but I kind of actually disagree with that. I don't feel like 2.4 and 2.5 were like incredible, like I don't feel like they were even like that crazy of like a leap. I don't feel like that they were dramatic improvements over 2.2. I feel like it was actually a pretty similar style of like cinematics, pretty similar style of storytelling. It was just simply a different story. And they're like all good. Like 2.2 is good. 2.4 was good. 2.5 is also really good. They're all good. It's just the stories are all so wildly different in the scope and like what actually occurs. One is about somebody trapped in a tower, right? That like, you know, gains power, does the whole sacrifice, they like almost die and get revived. 2.4 is about like a literal artificial reality and then like the endless suffering one person went through, dying thousands of times to like save, and then they like eventually like conquer that struggle and then, you know, solve the disaster with Lupa. And then 2.5 is like a broken promise, right? That gets like extended forward for like hundreds of years. And then the promise sort of gets kept, but then it's like kept murky. They're just way too like different of like subject areas for me to say that like one's like better than the other. I think that your judgment of those quests and which one you think is better is just like whichever plot resonates with you the most. Pun intended, right? Because they're all so wildly different and they all hit like different emotional like heartstrings as you're playing it. So whichever one relates to you the most or has you feeling the most is probably going to be the one that you like the most. But I can't say that one of these updates or one of these stories is better than the other. After you listen to that reasoning, can you objectively say one of those is better than the other?
They were cinematic, more in your face, and they carried the feeling that we were witnessing a massive change unfold in real time. And it wasn't just in presentation, it was in how Wuthering Waves chose to tell a story. In these updates, the game did something that's practically taboo in gacha storytelling. It stopped holding our hands. Instead, it trusted us to connect the dots ourselves.
That was one of the things that I find so crazy about Kuro's storytelling, is that they don't have the Paimon, and they put so much faith in the viewer. And this was true for 2.2 as well. True for 2.4 and true for 2.5. They put so much faith in the viewer to understand what is going on, right? They put a lot of faith in the viewer to pay attention. They put faith in the viewer to not be like talking to their chat the entire time or like talk about coding an AI to react for them while they're playing the game on stream, right? Kuro expects the viewers to pay attention, follow what's going on, and the end result is a story that feels so fresh in terms of its narrative. You don't feel like you're getting talked to like a fucking 10-year-old like when you're playing ZZZ. If you played ZZZ 2.1, you feel like you're cosplaying an actual fucking idiot with how simplistic the dialogue is and how often basic points are repeated to you like you have a disability. There's so few cliches in the Wuwa story as well. It's in a lot of ways genuinely actually predictable, because who thought that Rover was actually going to kill Frolova? Nobody thought that was going to happen, because gacha game characters aren't supposed to die because they're on banner. But they did it. Who thought that Septimon that we were playing for the past 5 hours, or sorry, the past 3 hours in part 1 of 2.4, who thought that Septimon was going to be a Sonarosphere? And the version of like Augusta and Yuno and all these characters that we met were like sort of real and then sort of not real. That was wild, right? And then who thought in 2.2 that Cantarella was actually the Sentinel Resonator? It was never actually Cardathea and Fleur de Lis. It was actually Cantarella the whole time. So much unpredictable stuff that's like legitimately, it's just cool. And I don't think Hoyoverse trusts their audience enough to not be fucking confused by it. But I guess based off of recent events, maybe Kuro Games is going to be influenced to put a Paimon into their game. Because, well, I mean, let's just be honest here. When we end up in situations like this where Billy is now making fun of Wuthering Waves content creators, maybe we do need a Paimon to help facilitate the storytelling over here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it in one of the future updates.
If you played 2.4 when it dropped, you probably noticed that part 1 ended with more questions than answers.
Absolutely.
What was the connection between the two separate Septimons? How exactly did Cartathea and Lupa tie together? The mystery was intoxicating. It was fun piecing things together, watching theory videos and hearing other players' perspectives. And the best part, anticipating part 2, wondering how the game would answer all of those questions.
I think the unfortunate part, though, about the two-part story quest is that a lot of people forgot what happened in part 1. Because it's a gacha game, right? And they might have literally only been playing while the story patches were up, and they maybe weren't keeping up with the content or, like, refreshing themselves on it, right, across the patch. Just logging in to do dailies every once in a while. I think a lot of people forgot, to be honest. It was like 3 weeks in between you playing both of the quests. Hey, people can get busy. People can have all these sorts of things happen. And I think it's a double-edged sword to have a two-part story quest. I wouldn't be upset if the next version, 2.6, it just drops the entire thing on day 1, right? I wouldn't be mad. Because I think that there are advantages and disadvantages to this type of storytelling.
And version 2.5 pushed gacha storytelling even further by doing something almost unheard of in the genre, putting its protagonist in a bad light. It made it clear that the Rover's decision to wipe their memory had real consequences.
I still don't think they're in a bad light. I still think that anyone saying that, like, Rover did anything bad, you're literally actually a fucking simp. I'm still telling you, man. She's actually a wanted terrorist. And you're saying that, like, your amnesiac promises are, like, something that you're responsible for. Bro, he's only seen her be a terrorist. Who the fuck cares what he can't remember? Stop being pussies. Stop simping. Like I said, if Frolova was a man, nobody would be saying El Rover. If Frolova had... Okay, no, I was about to say if Frolova had a penis, but there would still be simps.
This wasn't the usual hero shows up and solve everything arc. People suffered because of that choice, and the game didn't shy away from showing it. This sparked one of the most interesting debates in the community. Who was right, Frolova or the Rover?
It's still Rover. If you're saying Frolova, once again, you're a simp. In the most joking way, right? We're arguing, debating about story over here. I still think you're a simp, but, like, don't take it offensively.
There was so much nuance, so many perspectives to consider, and so many layers to unpack that discussing it became part of the fun. So yes, Rinascita didn't just tell a story, it redefined what gacha storytelling could be. And
yeah, I think it kind of set the gold standard, right? And I think I've talked about it a lot before in some of the previous story quests that I've covered regarding 2.5. They've opened the door to more characters dying. They've opened the door to, like, more nuanced, deep storytelling because now they can actually, like, play with this concept of death and loss without, you know, having it be too much of a drain on the overall story with, like, how they've engineered Frolova. And it's, to me, it's, like, a very, like, masterful way of keeping the depth without losing, like, the sort of, like, the risks, the stuff at the table. Because we feel Frolova's loss. We feel emotional, right? From her dying. But we also know that she could still come back. And it feels a little bit like I'm having my cake and eating it too. I don't know why, but that's what it feels like. It feels like everything can happen.
And the fact that a single region and not the entire game could shift the standard that much, I never thought that it was possible. And then when you start to look at world building, things get even more fascinating. See, when I first stepped into Reguna in version 2.0, I honestly thought that was it. I expected that the map would expand over time, but that the overall vibe we got in 2.0 would define the entire region. And I was prepared for that, because that is exactly what I'd always experienced with other gacha games.
Yeah, Septimon kind of looks like hell. Gonna be honest. If you take Reguna and then you compare it to Septimon, not gonna lie, Septimon kind of looks like hell. It's even got, like, an entire region that looks like a gigantic green tumor. And it's got, like, fucking scaly looking monsters and then, like, living clams walking around. Like, it's not gonna... Septimon is kind of fucked, bro. No lie.
But I couldn't have been more wrong. Wuthering Waves completely shattered that expectation. Rinascita feels like a map.
That's what I'm fucking saying, bro. This place looks diseased, brother. This is what I meant by gigantic green tumor.
Massive region made up of smaller, widely distinct subregions, each with its own identity, atmosphere, and style. In 2.0, we were dropped into Reguna, which feels like Venice, Italy meets high fantasy. The city blends modern charm with fantastical elements in a way that is instantly memorable. You step into Reguna City and you see the Italian-inspired architecture, the clothing style of its people, and even certain major characters whose mannerisms match that cosmopolitan vibe. But the moment you leave the city, the fantasy side of Reguna unfolds. From the peaceful Whispering Haven to the ethereal card-warped Nimbus Sanctum to the dark hollow death of President's End, each location feels distinct. Yet they all weave together into this vibrant tapestry that is Reguna. But
I feel like a lot of people like the Reguna specific vibe because it reminds them of, like, an MMORPG. I think that Rinascita hits the nostalgia factor for quite a few people. It feels like there's like a starting zone. It feels like it has like high level zones. It feels like the bosses are more like world bosses and stuff like that. Yeah, Rinascita 2.0 feels like an MMORPG in terms of its world design. Absolutely. And then like, I'm gonna be real, like Septimont feels a little bit different. Feels like you're playing like an Assassin's Creed game.
It's in version 2.2 that we start seeing the real shift in what Wuthering Waves offers in terms of world building and location variety. That's when we're dropped into the Avernolium. Sure, it's part of Rinascita, but it's completely...
Avernolium is like a Dark Souls DLC. Avernolium feels like An Orlando. That's what it feels like.
different from what we're used to. The Avernolium feels holy, tranquil, calm, and really beautiful. The architecture is stunning and the atmosphere is refreshing. And what's more is that the version we explored was a destroyed and abandoned Avernolium. But even in its ruined state, you can't help but stop and admire its beauty. And imagine just how breathtaking it must have been at its peak. And
An Orlando and Faro Missoula. 1,000,000%.
then we arrived in Septimont, which honestly feels like a soft reboot of everything. This was a whole nation in itself.
Feels like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Assassin's Creed Revelations, and then like Assassin's Creed, not 4, not Unity, Odyssey. It feels like a bunch of different Assassin's Creed games put together.
And true to Wuthering Waves style, Septimont was absolutely stunning. If Reguna gave off Venice vibes, Septimont brought Rome to life. Everything felt battle-focused, from the way the city was built to how the people dressed.
100% Odyssey. I mean, Odyssey did take place in like Greece and Rome, right?
Playing through Septimont, exploring the story and environment, really made you realize just how wild it is that Reguna, Septimont, and everything we've experienced are all part of one region.
Yeah, it's crazy how there's so much geographical variety and like architectural variety in Rinascita as a region, and then everything in Jinzhou is China. Where the other shit at?
It almost feels like we're cheating the system with how much variety Rinascita packs in. And it's not just storytelling and world building, it extends to character development and animation too. Because right now, I think we can all agree that one of the toughest spots to be in the gacha space is a free-to-play Wuthering Waves player. Because usually, free-to-play means that you have to skip some characters, save up, and pick the ones that you really want. But what if every character released is someone you want?
There's only one actual response that you can give to a free-to-play player that wants every single character released in a game. You might have to go fuck yourself.
From Zani, a fan favorite, to Kartathea, where the playable version has actually become more exciting than even her boss fight version, which is pretty rare in gacha games. Then there's Frolova, who nobody really wanted at first, but after playing her story,
nobody kind of still wants her. I'm gonna be real with you. While she might be great in the story, I do think that she is still one of the least valuable additions you can have to your account. I'm just gonna be entirely honest, guys, okay? You literally have a free Havoc DPS from the start of the game called Havoc Rover, and this is a Havoc DPS when there's already a Havoc DPS called Camellia. Guys, some people say who cares about meta? Guys, every well-performing character is a meta character. There has never been a good performing non-meta character, ever.
She flipped the entire community's opinion and became one of the most loved characters in the entire game. And coming up, Augusta and Yuno, who literally make the sun and moon appear in the sky when they use their skills. Every character in Wuthering Waves isn't just worth pulling for, they're worth playing.
I'm mostly excited for Chu Yan, and the reason for that is kind of simple. Everyone in my chat is about to say gay right now. I'm already calling it. Oh, there we go. It's already there, right? I said it before they were chatting, right? But it's because Kuro actually has... Every single time they've released a male character, their animations are fucking nuts. Let's be entirely honest over here. Jian has some of the coolest actual animations in the game. Zhang Liao, without a doubt, has some of the coolest fucking animations in the game. He literally fucking throws gigantic cubes at his enemies and slows down time. And then Brant summons a gigantic anchor that drops down with a 2,000% motion value. They legitimately have, like, the best kits in the game. The male characters. And the thing is, this guy is fucking Wu-Wa's version of, like, the samurai, the Ronin, the Yasuo, right? Those tropes. Bro has got to have one of the most badass kits in existence. It's going to be fucking nuts. It's probably going to look the best out of the entire cast. Sure, Wuthering Waves might only get 1 or 2 male characters a year. It is what it is. But the male characters that get introduced are fucking crazy, bro.
Each one brings something unique, both in story and gameplay. So with Rinascita coming to an end, it's
Like, this is my prediction, and I don't even think there are any leaks out about it yet. This is my prediction for Chu-Yan's kit. He's gonna be like one of those like wuxia swordsmen that like rides swords and shit, summons them. Think like Yan Qing. Think Yan Qing from Honkai Star Rail, but it's Yang Qing, but like not a pussy, right? And his like animations are him like summoning swords and like throwing them and shit, and then like his ultimate is a fucking judgment cut end from Devil May Cry with all the swords that he summons. And then he's a rectifier. He's a rectifier user that summons swords. If he does that, it doesn't matter what his kit is. He could be a support, he could be a sub DPS, he could be a main DPS. But that to me just seems like what he's going to be. Otherwise, why would he be so fucking wuxia coded if he's not gonna be fucking using swords and shit like that? And I'm pretty sure his tagline in the teaser is the Wandering Swordsman. Isn't that what he's called? Let me look that shit up. Where that though? Oh, I'm cooking, boys. I'm cooking, boys. Oh, get this bald fuck off my screen. I'm cooking, boys. Listen to this. The lone wayfaring swordsman, and his only company is his army of swords. What if what if Chu-Yan is actually the real Unlimited Blade Works collab? What if he is the real UBW collab? How's a guy that isn't actually holding a sword the lone wayfaring swordsman unless he summons swords? He's not holding one. It's not on his body. They've got to be appearing from somewhere around him, right? Huh. That's just my thoughts. I think his kit is going to be the best one released. I'm calling it now. He's going to have the best design out of all the characters. Because this is the thing. Who in CN is not going to pull this guy? Who in America is not going to pull this guy if he fucking summons swords and throws them at his enemies? Everyone's going to fucking pull that shit. Let's be real here. That is like the trope everyone likes. There's nobody that dislikes this if you're playing a fucking gacha game. Let's be honest.
It's only natural to feel a little sad. After all, Rinascita gave us so much. The story of the Blessed Maiden, the Order, the Darktide, Imperator, the Thrunodian. So many incredible moments. Knowing it's all wrapping up soon makes it easy to feel uneasy. But as
True. Because I think a lot of people are used to, and this is the unfortunate part of being in the same space as Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. Everyone's used to the dog shit filler patches that happen after the main story. Right? After the main story of like a Genshin or HSR patches or version is done. Once you get to version 3.5 and beyond, or like version 0.5, 0.6 and beyond, the patches suck ass. They're complete trash, right? There's nothing good in them. And the thing is that, well, I think we're going very close to 3.0 by the time like everything that's covered in this trailer is like concluded and over. We're gonna have the big moment in Rinascita, the big battle, get introduced to Chisa, and then I think we're off to the next region. So there's not going to be like that downtime, that same like filler patch sort of like 6 months where you feel like literally nothing is happening. And I feel like what we're going through right now and what we went through in version 2.1, 2.3, 2.5, it's filler, then main, then filler, then main. And I think it's honestly pretty okay for this to be the patch cycle. Right? Because, you know, you get a little bit of downtime in between, but it never feels like you're going 4 months, 5 months without any meaningful content. You always know that there's something good on the horizon, and at the very most, right, that good stuff on the horizon is only 42 days away. And I think that's pretty nice, especially in this space.
I also think it's completely fair to feel hyped. Version 2.6 brings Augusta's story, new locations like the Paradise and the Hunting Grounds, and so much more that's already got me excited. That said, it's also normal to feel a bit concerned about the new region. How will this game top what it's already given us? Because what we've seen so far is absolutely amazing. So
some people have said all they want is main story. Guys, when you think about the gacha release cycle of new character every patch, all of that stuff, having a main story every patch can actually be a little bit bad. Because what it does is it kind of doesn't let you take the time to actually have any exposure to other characters. Because you would be going ahead, right? And you would be forcing yourself on the main story for everything. and then it's like you fit in the new characters, and then you also try to go back to some of the old ones. Remember in 2.1 how that was a filler patch? And then we got to actually get more exposure to Brant. We obviously got 2 quests with like Phoebe and everything, right? If 2.0 was directly followed by 2.2, which was the main story, then it's like the spot where they can like get any exposure to Phoebe, where would that have been? Then you might say, oh, we wish Phoebe was in the main story. She was already a big part of the main story in 2.0, right? She was already a big part of the story in 2.0. And then 2.1 was just a further expansion of Phoebe's character, which you couldn't have done. You couldn't have done that if 2.0 was immediately followed by 2.2 in the storyline. So that's just like an example of where characterization can be improved from not having main story every patch.
So the new region has some huge shoes to fill. It needs to tell a story that feels fresh and different from Rinascita, but it also can't undermine everything we've loved so far. And right now, with the gacha games we have currently, I really believe Wuthering Waves' biggest competition is itself. And Rinascita...
Probably. Yeah. It's not really about, oh, this patch is worse than Genshin, or this patch is worse than HSR's. This patch isn't as good as 2.2. This patch isn't as good as 2.4. This story isn't as good as 2.5. Wuthering Waves' worst enemy will be itself in the upcoming future. And we'll just have to see how it all pans out. Because, well, there's no competition anymore. We're looking at the newer releases to find out where Wuwa's competition other than itself is going to be. And I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty funny situation to be in. So yeah, that'll be that for that one. Let me know what you all thought. I thought that this was an awesome video once again by the Nigerian perspective. Bro is always harvesting W's with his Wuwa content, so make sure you give him a like and a sub if you haven't already. Peace out.